Thank you very much for making a date with me on the marketplace. Now, the UK High Commissioner to Ghana, Ian Walker, says indigenous oil and gas companies should focus on innovation and technology to make them economically viable. He was speaking with Joy Business at a reception for some Scottish investors currently visiting the country.
The UK High Commissioner to Ghana hosted members of the Scottish Development International, an oil and gas exploration company, at his residence in Accra. He advised oil companies to leverage innovation and technology to yield utmost benefits and cut down on cost.
Offshore in Scotland, which is where I'm from, near Aberdeen, there are a huge number of oil and gas companies. And I think when people think of oil and gas companies, they often think of big, massive companies. Actually, it's often a lot of smaller companies that are doing lots of services around the oil and gas market. And Aberdeen is a real innovator and a real leading part of the world for this. And as a relatively small town in a relatively small country in Scotland, there's a natural affinity, I think, with many of the people setting up here. So I think tonight's about driving some more conversations and trying to make sure that we get more partnerships between those companies in Takoradi and Aberdeen and more broadly. Ghana's got significant economic growth at the headline kind of level. And the conversation I keep hearing is about diversifying that economic growth, needing more of the local economy to kind of come in and be part of it.
I said Ghana and the UK partnership will inure to the benefit of local investors within the country's petroleum industry.
There is a real expertise in the oil and gas sector, so we shouldn't pretend that there's not. That expertise is really important. It's getting access to the right expertise really matters. But equally, transferring that knowledge and experience to local partners is absolutely critical. You can't run an oil and gas industry that's completely built on outside companies. And in the case of Aberdeen, when Aberdeen discovered oil, there were lots of outside companies came in, and over the course of time, clearly more and more local companies, more and more indigenous companies sprang up to support that.
Speaking to Joy Business, Senior International Business Executive and Trade Mission Leader of the Scottish Development International, Ian Ross, said Ghana's oil and gas sector has significant prospects and that an effective partnership will help reduce production cost.
Ghanaians, one, they're looking for partnerships. Two, they seem to adopt good technology. Three, they know that Scottish oil and gas training is one of the best in the world. And many Ghanaians have had their first and second degrees in Scotland. So that makes for a really good partnership, Our companies are here looking for partnerships. Our companies are here looking to help Ghana, support Ghana's oil and gas industry.
Neil Stephen is a business development manager for Codex Integrity.
The people need to concentrate more on inspection. So they need to concentrate on inspecting what is needing inspected. It's not. There is no point in inspecting a pipeline over and over again when there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. So if they concentrate on inspecting the more specific areas, then that will be where they can reduce the cost.
The Scottish Development International opened its first office in Accra in June 2014, providing market research, advisory services, and due diligence within the oil industry. Fred Duhol's report for Joy Business.
And still staying within the sector, indigenous oil firm Springfield is expected to commence drilling on the East Deepwater West Cape 3 Points, a block of Ghana, from next month. This is expected to happen if the drill ship Stena Forth berths on the country's waters in the first week of October. My colleague George Rafi has been following up on this development. He joins you right here in the studio for more. George, so any idea when exactly this drill ship is coming?
Well, we understand that we've spoken to officials of the company, and again, all other things being equal, it's supposed to berth on our waters, that is next weekend. Now, this drill ship is supposed to commence drilling in these two oil wells that if, again, they're able to get some fine details, then they'll move ahead to do commercial drilling. So it's supposed to berth next weekend, and then it will start as soon as it berths. They'll do the necessary positionings of the drill ship, and then it will commence the drilling. That will lead to a fully fledged commercial operations drilling for this oil firm.
That's interesting for the country, but what does it hold for the industry?
I mean, there's talk about local content, and Springfield is seen as an indigenous oil firm that is actually venturing into a space that is reserved for these multinational, these big firms and all the rest. So it means that when these companies are making huge profit, or let's just say trying to make some good profits, in terms of capital retention, these firms or these monies are going to stay in this country. Also, you see that the company has been quite heavy on local content. So in terms of the capital, much of that is also going to stay in this country. But one significant person in all this thing is Kevin Okyere. And what does this thing mean for the company and going forward? When are they exactly going to start the commercial deal? I've been having some interaction with him. Let's watch him, what he has to say about that.
I mean, this phase, I would say, is one step away from, being in production. So we are just one step away. We just drilled this. We will ascertain, how things would, how the resource will come out. First of all, we have to make sure that there's commercial quantities and how it will come out, how it will flow to the sea level, and to be processed and beyond. So yeah, we're just one step away from commercial production. For
Springfield and for you, Mr. Kevin Okyere, what does this development? How do you take this development?
Well, I mean, I must honestly say that I feel like we are blessed to be in this opportunity. You need to think about it. On the entire African continent, now there are some amazing companies, African companies doing very, very well, but they are all either onshore or shallow water. The deep water area had been primarily left for Western and other international non-African companies. So to think of it as Springfield is the first African company, this is our first asset. This is our first oil block that we are working on, and for us to think that we are the first company in the whole world, I mean, in terms of African company, to actually own and operate and to drill in deep water, I think it's something that has to be celebrated by all Ghanaians and all Africans, because it's definitely going to inspire Africans, it's beyond Ghanaians, to actually look into venturing into the deep water space.
All right, so that was Group CEO of Springfield, Kevin Okyere. So, George, what next?
What next is that if, again, everything goes as planned, then the commercial drilling is going to start, meaning that would, again, open the door for commercial oil production.
And add up to our total
oil production led by an indigenous oil firm, and that would be the critical part of it. That is why it excites all of us in terms of what Springfield is doing in the oil and gas space.
All right, so I guess we'll be keeping a closer eye on it and bringing you some details. But don't go away yet, because the Bank of Ghana is taking steps to streamline foreign exchange transactions by commercial banks in the country. My colleague, once again, George, has been following up on this. George, what do you have on the Bank of Ghana?
It has to do with the Bank of Ghana trying to remind every institution, every individual that play in the forex market space, which is actually regulated by the Bank of Ghana. The rules and regulations are already there, but the Bank of Ghana is trying to remind every forex dealer and every bank that play in this space that these are the market conduct rules. If you want to trade on dollars on behalf of your client, these are the rules. You are saying that if you make a request, for instance, you have a dollar request of about maybe $100 million or $50 million. They are saying that back these demands with necessary documentations. These rules already exist. These are market conduct rules. They are saying that in order for us to appreciate and understand that this is a demand backed by a client that wants use for necessary business, give us the required documentation to support this. Also, there's been some space in the required profit that you can build and use that loosely on each request that you make and all the rest. The timing in which you're supposed to make these requests and all the rest. So all these things, the Bank of Ghana is just trying to remind these players that these are the regulations and you need to stick by them if you want to play in this space. Some are saying that, well, you are bringing too much restriction in this space. The Bank of Ghana doesn't agree with that. They rather believe that it will ensure that those who actually need the dollars are supplied with, so that you have a situation where somebody is trying to bet on development and put in requests and nobody needs that and somebody wants to take it and hoard it. So rather, these regulations or what they are putting in place will ensure that if you really need dollars to finance your imports, you are going to get it.
So to what extent would this, check the stability of the cedi?
Well, again, the Bank of Ghana makes an argument, and sometimes that is what they argue. They say that the demand for dollars, the high demand for dollars, most of them are not backed by real demand by businesses that want to use the FX to finance their imports. People think that, oh, the Bank of Ghana's reserve position is not strong, so therefore I want to maybe bet on that. EIU has brought a forecast that the cedi will not be that stable. So people are even taking their cedi accounts, rushing to go and buy dollars and open accounts and save it. The recent Bank of Ghana data suggests that when you want to put all the FX or the foreign exchange for all the banks together, a total about $4 billion. Now, the argument is that most of these monies are not needed for these transactions, and therefore, some of these regulations are going to ensure that if Mr. Yafi needs dollars, then you're giving the dollars. Therefore, don't go in and take dollars and open an account and save it there, thinking that the cedi is going to depreciate and therefore you can cash in. But some are also saying that, listen, if the cedi is about the stability of the Ghana cedi, if the cedi is really strong and even stable, nobody will be tempted to take his cedi account, walk into a bank or go to those Goro boys, buy dollars, open a dollar account and save it there. So it's a two-way thing. Whilst the Bank of Ghana wants to use these things that are within its law to check the excess demand for dollars, we've seen some blips over the past 2 days. Some are also saying that, well, stabilize the cedi and it will cut that demand for dollars by people who don't actually need it.
And you think the Bank of Ghana has what it takes to implement this particular?
Well, they have all the laws. They have all the laws if they want to be strict on the market. But the laws are there. And if you look at the fact that the Bank of Ghana has said that in terms of their reserves, you're looking at hitting $9.4 billion and even hitting $10 billion by the next quarter. It means that we are sure that the Bank of Ghana has those assets, those currencies, the dollars, to support imports. So some of these investors will be rest assured and they wouldn't want to bet on the fact that I'm afraid that things are going to get bad. So therefore, inflation has been fairly stable as well. So some of these variables and indicators will again lessen. But don't forget, we are going to get into a season where people will demand more dollars. So that's when all these policies will be put on the test, whether indeed it is working or not.
Thank you very much. Let's keep a wait and see what will happen. Still within the financial sector, some aggrieved customers of GN Savings and Loans in the Commander Edna Iguafu-Abrem municipality have expressed their dissatisfaction with the way they are being treated by the company and its founder, Dr. Papa Kwesi Indum. According to the customers, failure of the company to pay their locked-up funds made them beggars and paupers. At a news conference in El Nina, the customers called on government to help them retrieve their funds. Richard Kwejo has more.
The aggrieved customers in Dr. Papa Kwesi Indum's home district say the inability of the Savings and Loans Company to pay them their money has made life unbearable for them. They say they feel let down by the company and the bankroller, Dr. Papa Kwesi Indum. Convener of the group, Kobna Duku, says customers are becoming increasingly impoverished.
We are aggrieved customers of GN Savings and Loans in KE and hereby express our dissatisfaction on the awful treatment meted out to us by GN Savings and Loans and Papa Kwesi Indum, Doctor. He boasted of having branches of GN Bank in 300 locations in Ghana and has 1.2 million plus customers. Yet he was unable to pay as low as 100 Ghana cedis deposits to a customer. Our worries and concerns are that we can't feed our children, neither can we pay their school fees. Our business has collapsed. We have broken homes. We beg before we eat. Yet we have our own money seized at GN Savings and Loans without any justification.
Kobna Duku explains government intervention is crucial if they can retrieve their money.
The aggrieved customers of GN Savings and Loans are today calling on Nanado and his government to come into our aid of the numerous suffering depositors of GN Savings and Loans by paying us our money within the possible few time. Pay us our money now. Doctor, we need our money now. We need our money immediately.
These customers here say the happenings might send many of them to their early graves if nothing is done to support them. Richard Kwejo, Joy News, Cape Coast.
The Chartered Insurance Institute of Ghana, CIIG, has urged the National Insurance Commission, NIC, to adopt a name and shame strategy to enhance confidence in the insurance sector. According to the president of the institute, Reverend Asante Mafo Henkra, fines alone are not deterrent enough for insurance companies engaged in unethical behaviors. He spoke with Joy Business at the president's board session, which formed part of the institute's 2019 educational conference and AGM. Bismarck Ausa sat through the event for Joy Business and has put together the following report.
The CIIG Educational Conference and Annual General Meeting brought together about 150 seasoned insurance professionals. Speaking to Joy Business, President of the Institute, Reverend Asante Mafu Ahenkra, urged the regulator, NIC, to name and shame companies engaged in unethical behaviors as part of moves to shore up underwriting profits and improve insurance claims management.
What we intend to do is to remind ourselves to go back to practice the basic things that made insurance companies become that strong, able to underrun big companies elsewhere. And so we want to do that, remind ourselves so that we don't fall victim to a situation where things deteriorate and then we are not able to pay claims well. And some companies may even go bankrupt, like is happening with the banking sector. We thought that we should let them understand that it's not enough to punish them privately, that by naming them, they send a signal to the public, and they'll be more concerned when their names go out there as having done something wrong.
The CIIG president's sentiments were re-echoed by the Deputy Commissioner of Insurance, Michael Andor, who lamented the low level of professionalism among insurance practitioners.
We should not only celebrate our achievement, we also need to identify and recognize our challenges and begin to address them. One major challenge we have is that even though we have managed to significantly increase the number of qualified professionals in the industry, the level of professionalism is still low.
He has therefore charged insurance companies to grow the number of customers and their distribution channels.
It is obvious that we do not have much customer love, but there are things we can do to improve that, and that include suitability of product, transparency, and a good claims culture.
The conference saw the official launch of an award scheme for the insurance industry. Lydia Lariba Bawa is the former Commissioner of Insurance and the chairperson for the award scheme.
We want to organize this award scheme and own it because we have the requisite industry knowledge and we know who is who in our industry so that it will be credible.
The three-day conference also featured a seminar on exploiting the annuities market in Ghana, key considerations for success. Some seasoned fellows of the CIIG took turns at the conference to educate and take the professionals through a mentorship program. The CIIG later, at its annual general meeting, submitted a proposed 2020 budget together with notes to the financial statements for the year ended December 2018. Bismarck Ausa, Joy Business.
The quality control company QCC of Cocoa Board has received international certification from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, with support from the Swiss government. Before then, cocoa beans from Ghana had to go through other quality checks before being accepted on the world market. The move makes the QCC the only company within the West African sub-region to approve cocoa beans exports directly to the international market. Charles Aiti has the rest of the story.
Even as Ghana remains a leading producer of cocoa in the world, the country's accreditation body, the Quality Control Company, has over the years required international accreditation and standards to export cocoa beans on the global scale. The latest feat means the Quality Control Company has been granted ISO certification by the United Nations Industrialization Organization, UNIDO. Here's MD of the QCC, Nana Maxwell Kakari Ado.
It has given the two countries a good stand to bargain with our traders. Hitherto we couldn't do that. But what will happen now is that per our structures, per quality control quality, already Ghana produces the best quality cocoa in the whole world. Ivory Coast has the highest, but the quality is poor. So by that cooperation, it means that Ivory Coast stands a very good chance of gaining from us to improve the quality. So what we do is that international standards are meant for specific crops. So if we want to go in again and do for the other crops, it means we have to go in for another different thrusts.
Ghana stands unparalleled when it comes to the export of these cash crops across the world. With this particular ISO certification, what this means is that whenever we export most of these raw materials, and even processed ones, processed beans for that matter, there's not going to be any doubt whatsoever the quality there is and the foreign exchange that we could get out of this.
Meanwhile, UNIDO, in partnership with the Swiss government, has launched the Global Quality and Standards Program, expected to facilitate the standardization of cash crops in Africa.
One of the areas is to develop the quality the quality infrastructure required in a country for their exports. The type of assistance that we give, we work with laboratories, with inspection services such as the QCC. We provide them training, hand-holding for them to improve the processes they use and to be accredited, to be internationally recognized.
The $5 million project is aimed at also boosting trade volumes and instilling confidence in Ghanaian and African products.
And that's what we have for you in the marketplace today. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. You have to join me again same time tomorrow for more interesting developments in the world of business. Have a good afternoon.